So we are at KubeCon in LA, and super excited to have, yeah, exactly, Ian Tien, the CEO of Mattermost, with us. And we got to talk a little bit earlier on the floor, but I would love to know, for the people that are going to watch this, just tell them a little bit about Mattermost, and I'm sure some of them know what it is, but let's just give them the kind of the 30-second elevator pitch.
Yeah, I think what happens at KubeCon, everyone has the same problem, which is not enough trained professionals to go run the Kubernetes services and to do DevOps and to be developers. Like a 0% unemployment rate in DevOps today. So you got to bring in junior folks with senior folks. You have to train them up as fast as possible to become DevOps practitioners. And how do you do that? Yep. And for us, the core is really collaboration. Is that so how do you observe, how do you learn, master, teach? How do you see people with the right practices and processes and bring that out to the whole organization? So product-wise, we started off as sort of like an open source Slack. There was, same keyboard shortcuts, same integrations, open source, you can deploy it anywhere. And what we've added from there is work management and workflow. So you can think about, hey, there's Trello, Notion, Asana. Kanban boards kind of have all the same functionality. Sure. So let's take that functionality, but really integrate it with the real-time messaging experience so that the problem of, hey, how does this work? So you've got this really great instant response. You have all the conversation above it. Integrate that with a ticket right away without extra effort. Keep the context all the way through so the junior people and the senior people can really work off of the same playbook, the same operating procedures.
So they're working, yeah, so they have all the context around what they need to actually do the job, and they have the help from the senior engineers, or their knowledge is captured in the workflow and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So think about an incident response where people, old way of doing it is jump in the channel. Everyone get on Zoom, right? Yep. And it's someone joins 5 minutes later. What's going on? And then
start all over.
Yeah, and then people are using the different terminals. They're trying things, and 5 times out of 10, it actually gets worse rather than better, right? Because people are let's do tons of reporting, and things slow down, or they try to kick off the wrong things. And everyone's got a lot of they want to try really hard and do a good job, but there's not structure, right? Yep. And they don't have the support that they need. So what we've done is we've worked with a lot of customers that's where they're starting, and where they are now is, hey, we've got even internally at Mattermost, you've got a communication channel that's real time. You can kick off an incident, what we call a playbook, and you've got the standard operating procedures. Who's the incident commander, what you have to do. There's automation all the way through, and then when you're done, you do a retrospective, and you can really tune and accelerate your processes. And the junior people and the senior people can be mixed in and work together and learn, and everyone be trained.
Awesome. So you're providing almost like cookbooks for how to, or playbooks for how to execute these things and support it through the tool.
Yeah, absolutely. So our playbooks are never going to be as good as what customers can come up with after they've iterated. So we've got out of the box opinionated playbooks for different, CI/CD, conversational development, different incident response workflows. But the power really comes in the retrospective. And the first time it happens, you spend half an hour, you're throwing all the 5 reports into the system. The second time you do it, because you've automated it, it goes from half an hour to 5 seconds. Because that is the customization and the extensions that those teams have built into the system.
Sure. Yeah. And so it's really developer focused in that sense, right?
Yes, absolutely. So, what we found through our research is over 40% of a developer's work week is wasted doing things that do not move the needle.
That makes sense. That sounds right.
And, in this market where it's so hard to bring in talent, how do you change that? How do you really enable those developers and those digital operators?
Yeah. Okay. And I think when we were talking earlier, you're saying Mattermost isn't just for the developers. It's designed for the developers, but other people in the org end up using it.
Absolutely. So it'll start off with developers, and you'll bring in, site reliability engineering, you'll bring security operations, you'll bring all the folks that are involved in the digital operations workflows. And as they build these solutions, what you'll find is they'll bring in even the non-sort of developer personas to operate on this, because the platform is so extensible.
And so how, for a developer who does want to, say, extend the platform, or you guys offer developer documentation, APIs?
Absolutely. So the entire platform is open source. So you can go to api.mattermost.com and you can see sort of the complete listing, and you have the complete functionalities. How the server even talks to our web client, to our front-end clients, is completely available. Awesome. So in the most extreme, sort of customizations, we have people writing a terminal shell for Mattermost for the experience in Haskell. Right. Wow. And you can actually check, I think it's called Matterhorn, it's an open source project, but that's just how far you can extend it.
So is there a community around the tool, like as far as open source goes?
Yeah, absolutely. So 27,000 stars on GitHub. We've got
Wow.
4,000 contributors. We're in 18 different languages, over 1.5 million phrases, translated. So this is something we're so excited to have like so many people contributing to the project.
How do people get started contributing if they want to?
We really care about contribution community. Go to mattermost.com and go and look into contribution, whether it's going to be a feature request or a bug report or a pull request or documentation. We really welcome that. And last year during Hacktoberfest, which is we had over 400 contributions in the month of October last year. Working with DigitalOcean and Open Source Month. But it's a real community that is exciting and energizing and really pulls us to innovate and pulls us into the scenarios that they really care about.
Right. Have you seen any kind of like interesting use cases emerging where people are doing cool things with Mattermost?
Yeah, I think, on one, I'll give you sort of like on one spectrum, like people are tweeting about like feeding their cat using Mattermost and webhooks on timers.
Yep.
On the other end, we can see a lot of really amazing DevOps like scenarios. So there's one, there's a Silicon Valley company, IPO, hypergrowth, and they've got a NPS score in the 70s. They really care about. They got 4.9 star ratings on their mobile app, and Mattermost and how they work together is so core to that. Every time they get a low rating on that mobile app, it turns into an incident. It's like, okay, what happened? How do we reply? How do we talk to that consumer who had a bad experience, and how do we address it very rapidly? So these responses and these use cases have been really foundational to how software teams are building and delivering their services.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's not just the DevOps incident or whatever. You can really kind of craft it to whatever you need to respond to, or whatever you want to have some sort of workflow for.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we talked about from feeding your cat to like creating 4.9 star sort of mobile applications. I'll tell you another extreme case, which is, there's a YouTube video on this actually. It's the Air Mobility Command in the U.S. Air Force. So 18,000 air crews use Mattermost to plan the missions that fly the planes. It's open source technology, and it's being used out there. And it's a workflow that includes e-signs and sign-offs, and it's making sure that people have the information they need quickly. So you've gone from, before it was a physical binder, 30 minutes, you have to, pick that up and figure out how to fly the plane in 30 minutes from the information you have. Now it can be 2 hours because that digital workflow lets you have that information way far ahead of time.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's gone from the community members feeding the cat to creating amazing software to mobilizing to real world operations.
Yeah, no joke. That's a pretty cool application. So you're kind of like right in the middle of the kind of collaboration productivity space, and the world has changed a lot on that front over the last 18 months or so. What are the things that are there things you're predicting are going to kind of continue to evolve or change in the way people work together?
Yeah, I think digital operations and that sort of 0% unemployment rate is going to be the bottleneck for the whole world.
Yeah.
So there's three things that have happened in the last 18 months. Number one, there's been an incredible surge in demand for digital applications. In the next 5 years, we're forecasted to have over 500 million applications developed. And that is
That's insane.
That's a mind-blowing number.
Yeah.
And that's contributed to this this shortage of qualified of talent that is sort of ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And and now it's a global problem, because what's happening is those big tech companies, they're competing in Minneapolis, and they're competing in Cologne, and they're competing all over the world, and and because the demand is so high, so it's hard to get sort of people who are perfect and perfectly trained. And what's so important is learning on the job, and what are the systems that will help junior developers and seniors work together, and you have a matrix of skill sets, and how do you operate as a sum of your strength? That is one of the most important things that needs to happen. And the third piece, so we talked about demand, we talked about talent. The third thing is trust. As we go digital and as we build these 500 million applications, the technology that's accelerating us to do that is also causing an exponential growth in cyber threats.
Mm-hmm.
And this is becoming sort of nation state level, it becoming par for the course. So how do you have that level of security in all of your security operations? So I think these three trends will define our generation of digital operations. Yeah,
no, I think particularly on the security front, that's been a big theme here at the conference this year, and definitely something people are starting to really talk about. So I couldn't agree more in terms of like the need to start thinking about that. And with Mattermost in particular, what's Mattermost's kind of approach or thought on security?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're gonna have a span of, hey, there's gonna be SMBs that use our cloud product, and they're fine. There's not nation states going after most of these folks.
Right.
And then we have some of the most secure organizations in the world. And what we have is this concept of sovereign communications. What sovereign communications means, you're completely in control. So let me give you an example of something that you can do on an open source platform like Mattermost that nothing else in the world can handle, and that is mobile communications. So mobile, you don't have to trust, the SMBs using cloud, that's fantastic. You can use our cloud hosted mobile apps, you can get all notifications, piece like that. If you want to be, if you have a sovereign, if you want full sovereignty, you can take the source code from our open source mobile applications, compile them yourselves with your own certificates. You can create the push notification service that communicates through Google and Apple, right? Because you have to push that to the device, but you compile that yourself with your own encryption, right? So Mattermost never touches it. We have zero knowledge of how you deployed it, and we have zero control over it. So from there, what happens is when you go through Mattermost, you can fully encrypt the channels, you can control the database, you can control everything. When you send the push notification to the cloud, you only send the ID, not the actual text message. So when it hits your mobile device, then it actually picks up the actual notification payload. So that's an example of a fully sovereign communication system that works with modern technologies, right? You're not like on a WAP phone, right? Like this is
right.
Using your smartphones. You can use your own devices, but your organization can control all the encryption, all the compilation, see every line of source code, and there's nothing else on the planet that gives you that amount of control. So that's an extreme case. And the organizations that we work with have really pioneered these requests for sovereignty and for control. And what we've done is really responded to like those specific needs.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And do you feel like I had a really good question and now I lost it. I'll just look at these questions. Totally. I know Blake wanted me to ask these. So we talked about like collaboration trends. We talked about workforce trends. What are the themes you're seeing in talked about in the conference here that are coming up? Like, what are the things that are exciting in this particular space to you?
My excitement really comes from helping customers solve their problems.
Yep.
And one of the biggest problems they have, it's a problem, it's an opportunity, is the technology around Kubernetes is so amazing. You can do such powerful things. It's also changing at an astonishingly fast rate.
Yep.
So the new tools and workflows and frameworks that you have to use are different. I wouldn't say year to year, almost like quarter to quarter.
Yeah, that's right.
And what we have to do is support this community and support our customers and our open source contributors and everything they're doing in dealing with that rapid and complex change.
Yeah.
And for us, that's really having a platform that can move that quickly. So you're not waiting. So it's like, okay, here's the here's the technology. Let's wait 3 to 6 months for the integration to come from this proprietary company and flow down.
Right.
There's just no time. And for us, it's the ability to create the open API system, the extensibility, and a plugin architecture that lets people adopt and integrate these technologies as fast as they need and on their schedule rather than on a vendor schedule.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. There's certainly a proliferation of tools and ways to do things. So that I think just the need to keep up with it is definitely a growing need. I mean, just looking at all the vendors here in this space at the conference, it's like there's so many different tools you might have in your tool chain, in your environment, and like being able to move quickly to incorporate them is super important. You guys didn't you just announce you had an announcement yesterday, I think you said?
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's really just saying, hey, this integration of the real-time messaging and the project and the work management and the workflow are now available like in our new suite. So we've got a combined unified platform with multiple applications that work really well together.
Yep.
In addition to the APIs and the integrations, and we announced new packaging and all available for that community. So yesterday was really that packaging, that announcement. Included in that, which is actually something we should maybe talk for if people that want to try this out.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to get there next.
So the home viewers, I suppose, is really this concept of cloud starter. So before, we've tried to make Mattermost super easy to install, single Linux Linux binary works with Postgres or MySQL. We even have a light proxy. If you want to try a single node setup, one line Docker install. That's about as far as we can push. The self-managed version. But now it's even easier. Now we'll have a really inexpensive cloud version. So unlimited users, $12 a month. You can basically host the open source version, and just like a WordPress, and you can try it out. So hey, this is for a lot of SMBs or for enterprises that want to try things out. We know that enterprises have a difficult time with anything that's not like an open source license. They have to, like engineers there have to can I check with legal? Are we allowed to do this? There's PII, there's GDPR. So they can use our one-line Docker install or our Linux binary, or a Kubernetes operator, super simple to get going. But for the SMBs that, don't need that quite as much, you can try a cloud version. You can kick the tires, understand it, have it hosted, and have it run. And when you're thinking about, hey, I'm running Slack and I'm running, Trello, and my bills look like this, and I really want to be more efficient. Hey, $12 a month, you really can't beat that.
Totally not. I think that's less than Netflix at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
So for, to wrap up this, I mean, it may be obvious, but where should people go to learn more? Yeah, please join us at Mattermost.com. And whether you want to try the software, you want to contribute to our community, whether you want to try that cloud starter, it's all begins from there. And what's your GitHub? Where is it? Just Mattermost? Yeah, Mattermost. Just GitHub/Mattermost.com. GitHub/Mattermost. You can find all of our projects. Mattermost.server is the server. We break out the different libraries, like the front end, in different pieces. But there's all instructions on how to build things. So you can participate anytime. If people want to connect with you, do you have a Twitter account? Do you use Twitter, or do you use LinkedIn, or what? Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. Ian Tien, IANTIEN. Twitter, LinkedIn. Happy to connect. Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today. Super excited to have you, and enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you. This was awesome. Yeah. Really appreciate it. Yep.